This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Thank you, Dr. Lightman, for the warm introduction. I want to thank Ari and Ruthie for opening up their home. The truth is I haven't seen Ari in over 20 years, and I didn't even know if Ari knew me, but I certainly knew of him very well. In fact, Ari's brother, younger Baruch, was my main chavrus in yeshiva for many, many years. And I have to say my greatest years of learning came learning together with Ari's brother. And I learned so well with Baruch that we never battled, we never spoke, we just learned. But I knew of Ari, I knew of his generosity, and I have to say that Ari and Baruch's parents are from the nicest people that I know. And through my relationship with Baruch, I came to learn that the Youngreis family, an illustrious family of Rabbanim going back many, many generations. In fact, I see on the wall here of many, many generations of Rabbanim in Europe, and I know even going back before that. So it's an honor to speak in their home. I want to thank Mordechai Jacob, one of our Chashva Balabatim in our shul, who for bringing me here this morning. Someone we're very proud of. He's Kaveh Itim LaTorah. He's Oisik B'tzar Chetzir Be'amuna. I want to thank Rav Shalom Veg, who I see is one of the sponsors this morning. And it's a great honor and pleasure to be with you. For me, it's a great privilege to speak on behalf of this organization. It's a cause that I feel is very dear to my heart. Because the thought of delivering packages to Yidden who are unfortunate, who don't have enough to eat, it reminds me of my grandfather, who's a Holocaust survivor. He came to this country in 1951. But 6 years, between 1945 and 1951, he had a very unusual job. And that is, in Europe, he had studied English. Even though he was a Talmud of Menachem Zemba, he had studied English. And upon liberation, he was given an army uniform and a jeep, and he was made the religious head of the Joint Distribution Committee. And in that capacity, he shipped in kosher food to Europe from America. He shipped in matzos, he shipped in dalin minim. And I actually have original photographs of my grandfather delivering packages to Yidden in the Sheres HaPleit and the DP camps. And the thought of delivering packages to Jews in need reminds me of how my own grandfather contributed to resurrecting and resuscitating the Sheres HaPleit 65 years ago. A Yid who delivers food to another Yid, that is tzidkus, that is righteousness, and I don't say that lightly. If I were to ask you, what is a tzaddik? What's a tzaddik? Everybody has their notion of what a tzaddik is. What's a tzaddik? A tzaddik is somebody who feeds others. In fact, you may be surprised to learn there are only two people in the entire Chumash, in the entire Tanakh, who are called tzaddik. Noach, but Noach ish tzaddik, and he's the only individual in the whole Chumash called a tzaddik. And Yosef, the Navi Amos calls Yosef al Michram ba'kesef tzaddik. Yosef and Noach. What do these two individuals have in common? They both fed the world. Noach sustained whatever survivors there were on the Teva. He sustained the animal kingdom. And Yosef hu ha-majber, says the Medrash Tanchuma Parshas Noach. A tzaddik is someone who sustains others. So I know you're thinking, there's another who's also called a tzaddik. The Ribono Shel Olam was called a tzaddik. Tzaddik Hashem b'chol derachav. You have to look at the pasuk before. That's right, Hashem's a tzaddik. Poiseach es yadecho masbiya l'chol chai ratzayin. Hashem feeds the world. Tzaddik Hashem b'chol derachav. That's the midah of tzidkus. But I want to focus on, in a few minutes that we have, I want to stress there's another midah involved over here. And that is the midah of being noisei ba'olam chaveroi, the midah of empathy, the midah of sympathy. You know, the Ribono Shel Olam has many midos, has many character traits. He's an onav, he's a rachum, he's a chanun, yud gimel midos harachamim. But if we had to identify, does the Ribono Shel Olam have a signature hallmark characteristic? Perhaps we could say that Ribono Shel Olam's signature characteristic is that he is noisei ba'ol. He feels our pain. He empathizes with our pain. He lets us know that we're not alone. In fact, the very first encounter the Rebbeinu Shalom has with Klal Yisrael, the very first time the Rebbeinu Shalom speaks to Moshe Rabbeinu, Vayera Malach Hashem Elov Belabas Eish. Where? Mitoich Hasneh. The Rebbeinu Shalom appears to Moshe Rabbeinu from a burning bush. Says Rashi, why a thorny bush? Why a burning bush? Why v'lo ilan acher mishum imoy anoichi b'tzara? The Rebbeinu Shalom was telegraphing this message. He was conveying this message that of all my midos, of all my characteristics, you know how I would like to introduce myself? You know what my shalom aleichem to Klal Yisrael is? Imoy anoichi b'tzara. I'm with you. I feel your pain. And if you want to know the reward and the schar and the bounty and the windfall that's in store for those who are able to engender and adopt this midah, listen to a Balaturim, a monumental Balaturim. The Balaturim observes the fact that there are only 2 psukim in the whole Tanakh that begin with the word Uli Yosef. The first pasuk is Uli Yosef Yulad Shnei Vanim B'Terem Tavai Shnasarav. That Yosef had 2 children before the famine came. But once the famine came, once the Rav came, Yosef stopped engaging with his wife. He said, even though I'm the viceroy and I'm living in the palace, but if the world is suffering, I need to empathize, I need to sympathize with them. And Yosef stopped engaging with his wife. That's the first time it says Uli Yosef. What's the other time it says Uli Yosef? At the end of the Torah, Uli Yosef Amar, Mivoireches Hashem Artzoi Mimeged Shamayim Mitol Mitoim Roivetzes Tachas. That at the end of the Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu on his last day, he turns to Yosef and he says, this is your bracha. Mivoireches Hashem Artzoi. Says Rashi, an amazing thing. Loi hoisa eretz mivoireches ke eretz shel Yosef. Loi hoisa eretz maleya kol tov. That the most fertile, lush land in Eretz Yisrael was the share of Yosef HaTzadik. Says about Balaturim, it's not a coincidence. The 2 Uli Yosefs connect to each other. You know why Yosef got the windfall? You know why Yosef got the bounty? You know why Yosef was more successful than any of the other Shvatim? Because Uli Yosef Yulad Shnei Vanim B'Terem Tavai Shnas Harav. Because Yosef empathized with the people. He sympathized with the people. And the Rebbeinu Shalom says, I like that. I like when people do that. Of all the midah, says Rebbeinu Shalom, that's my favorite one. That's who I reward. Because he was noisei ba'al. Now listen to this vart. When I hear this vart, my neshama quivers. It is so true, emes la'amita. Says the Mashgiach, Rav Matasyahu Salomon, that if you look at the bracha that Moshe gives Yosef, the pasuk says, Uli Yosef Amar Mevoireches Hashem Artzoi Mimeged Shamayim Mitol Umitoim Roivetzes Tachas, and then the bracha ends Umimeged Eretz Umloya Umeretzain Shoichni Sneh. You know who's giving you this bracha? The one who dwells in the bush. Who's the one who dwells in the bush? The Rebbeinu Shalom. Since when is the Rebbeinu Shalom called the one who dwells in the bush? Nowhere in the whole Tanakh is the Rebbeinu Shalom called the one who dwells in the bush. The answer is, says the Mashgiach, the Rebbeinu Shalom is trying to explain why Yosef got the bracha. You know why? Because do you know who I am, says Rebbeinu Shalom? I'm Umeretzain Shoichni Sneh. I'm the Imoy Anoichi B'Tzara. I'm the one who teaches you that of all the midos tovos, the one I look for, the one I focus on, is the ability for a yid to empathize and sympathize with another. That is my signature midah. That is my hallmark characteristic. I am the Ritzain Shoichni Sneh. I am the Imoy Anoichi B'Tzara. That's who I am, and that's what I look for, says Rebbeinu Shalom. Yosef, you empathized, you sympathized with the rest of your people. Mevoireches Hashem Artzai. You get the windfall. You get the bounty. So in the merit of our coming together this morning, not only to show our financial support, but to show our feelings and our nesias oil and our empathy and our sympathy, may the Rebbeinu Shalom bless us all with nachas, with gesund, with parnas v'revach. Yimalei Hashem kol mishal aseinu l'toiva. Tizkol mitzvahs. Thank you everyone for coming. Yimalei Hashem kol mishal aseinu l'toiva. Shkaya.
You've just just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.